Today, we're unpacking a government proposal that really gets to the heart of a huge debate. We're talking about a plan that could dramatically change the lives of people seeking asylum in the US. So, let's get right into it. I want you to just look at this number for a second. 173 years. I mean, can you imagine waiting that long for anything? Now, imagine waiting that long just to get permission to work and earn a living. It sounds completely unbelievable, right? But believe it or not, according to the government's own analysis, that's the potential wait time for some asylum seekers if this new rule goes through. So how on earth do you get a number that big? Well, it really comes down to two key changes. Right now, as you see on the left, an asylum seeker can apply for a work permit after about 6 months. But this new proposal does two things. First, it pushes that initial wait out to a full year. And second, and this is the absolute game changer, it creates a new mechanism that could slam the brakes on the whole process, maybe forever. Okay, so how could a rule possibly create a wait time that lasts longer than a human lifetime? Let's peel back the layers and look at exactly how this thing is supposed to work. To get this, you need to know about something called the Asylum EAD clock. Now, EAD just stands for Employment Authorization Document, a work permit. Think of this clock as the official countdown. The moment an asylum application is received, the clock starts ticking, counting down the days until that person is even allowed to ask for a permit. It's pretty much the starting gun for the whole process. And this is the core of it. This is the mechanism that could lead to that 173-year wait. The rule says that if the average time it takes to process an asylum case goes over 180 days, the government will just stop accepting new work permit applications, an indefinite pause. And get this, with current backlogs already taking years, this isn't some far-off what-if scenario. This pause would basically be triggered the instant the rule became law. All right, so that's the how. It's a pretty big change, which leads to the obvious question, why? Why would the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, put something this drastic on the table? Let's take a look at their official reasoning. So, in the administration's own words, it's about closing what they see as a major loophole in the system. A spokesperson for DHS put it this way, saying that the chance to get a work permit has become an incentive for people to file what they call fraudulent asylum claims, and that this is clogging up the system. They argue this change is all about restoring integrity to the process. So if we break down their argument, it really comes down to these points. The administration believes that if you take away the work permit as a quick reward, you'll discourage people from filing what they term frivolous claims. The logic is this would then reduce the overall strain on the system, freeing up officials to focus on what they see as legitimate cases and better manage any national security risks. Okay, so that's the government side of the story. But what could actually happen if this policy goes into effect? What are the potential consequences? Well, critics and economists have forecast some pretty significant ripple effects. Let's start with another huge number, $70 billion. That is the estimated amount in lost wages every single year if this large group of asylum seekers can't work legally. I mean, that's not just a number on a page, it's a massive economic hole with widespread effects. And this chart kind of breaks down those projected impacts. The biggest piece you'll notice is human hardship. We're talking about people who have fled danger, facing potential poverty, or being forced into the underground economy just to survive. Then you have the direct economic costs, not just those lost wages we just talked about, but also billions in lost tax revenue that governments won't be collecting. And finally, some argue this could make labor shortages even worse in certain industries that really depend on this workforce. Now, here's something that's really important to get. This proposed rule didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's actually just the latest step in a series of recent changes that have already made it harder for asylum seekers to get work permits. And when you look at this timeline, you can really see that pattern take shape. In late 2025, a rule limited automatic extensions for people renewing their permits. Then, just 2 months later, the maximum length of a new work permit was slashed from 5 years all the way down to 18 months. And then, a couple of months after that, this major suspension rule we're talking about today was put on the table. It's really a cumulative effect. So, after all that, you're probably wondering, where does this all stand right now, and what's the path forward from here? Okay, so the single most important thing to know is that this is still just a proposal. It is not the law. The time for the public to submit comments on it has closed, and now the ball is in DHS's court. They have 3 basic options. They can change the rule, they can scrap it altogether, or they can push ahead and finalize it. And if they do finalize it, well, advocacy groups have already said they are fully prepared to sue and fight it in court. So, at the end of the day, the final decision, whether it comes from the agency itself or from a judge, is going to be a big one. The outcome here is going to have a very real impact on the lives of thousands of people, on the businesses that might hire them, and on the U.S. economy as a whole.
And that really leaves all of us with the big, fundamental question that's at the core of this whole thing. It's a tough one, with no easy answers. How does a country like the United States balance its own economic needs, its real security concerns, and the humanitarian promises it has made to the world?